Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Honorable Mr. Sark. Your Lordship, the FCT High Court Judge, the Controller General of Prison Senior Officers, thank you very much. Thank you, Your Excellency. Thank you very much. Please, may we all be standing as we take the national anthem. Thank you very much. Honorable Mr. Sark, very important dignitaries here present, distinguished colleagues. I have the honor and rare privilege to welcome all of us to this auspicious gathering. But before we start, Nigeria is a praying nation. We believe very strongly in the efficacy of prayer. Therefore, permit me to request that we commit today's gathering into the hands of Almighty God. And in doing that, we are going to take the second stanza of the national anthem. On the count of 2, we go. 1, 2. O God of creation, direct our noble cause. Guide our leaders right, help our youths the truth to know, in love and honesty to grow, and living just and true. Great lofty heights attain, to build a nation where peace and justice shall reign. And to all that we say, amen. The Vice President, Vice President, Federal Republic of Nigeria, Professor Yemi Osibancho, SAN, GCON. Here represented by the Honorable Minister of Interior, Lieutenant General Abraman Bello Dambazao, retired, CFR PhD. Her Excellency, former Deputy Governor of Bayelsa State, the Honorable Chief Judge, Federal Capital Territory, Controller General of Prisons, the Executive Director of Prawa, representative of British High Commission, very senior present officers here present, distinguished colleagues, members of the press, ladies and gentlemen. I have the honor and privilege to welcome all of us very warmly to this gathering once again. Without wasting further time, ladies and gentlemen, may I, with all honor and respect, invite the Controller General of President Jafaru Ahmed to present his welcome address. Controller General, sir.
Vice President, Federal Republic of Nigeria, Professor Yemi Osibanjo, SAN, ably represented by the Minister of Interior, Lieutenant General Abdurrahman Dambazao, CFR, PhD, the Chairman, Prawa, the CJ, FCT, the DG, Legal Aid Council, Excellency, the Swiss Ambassador to Nigeria, Director General Prawa, senior prison officers here, senior police officers, invited guests, gentlemen of the press, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me a great pleasure to welcome you to the formal presentation of the report of a survey conducted by the Nigerian Prison Service in conjunction with the Prisoners Rehabilitation and Welfare Action, Prawa, and with the support of the British Foreign and Commonwealth Office. Prawa is a non-governmental organization that has been actively involved in the promotion of the conditions and the general well-being of prison inmates in Nigeria for several years now. The issue of overcrowding in our prisons, particularly those located in urban centers, with associated adverse effects on the condition of imprisonment, is no longer news. It is also a common knowledge that the overcrowding phenomenon is exclusively among the pre-trial detainees. No doubt, the situation has continued to attract serious attention from stakeholders who daily strive to involve one form of intervention or the other in order to address the menace. What has, however, been challenging is essentially the dearth of baseline data on the nature and characteristics of prison overcrowding to enhance the development of sustainable solutions. Therefore, when the opportunity to launch a study on the nature and demography of awaiting trial prisoners came, it was indeed a major relief of a thought. The survey was therefore conducted with an overreaching objective to improve the knowledge on the nature and demographical statistics of awaiting trial prisoners in targeted prisons in Enugu, Kano, and Lagos State, among others. The document mirrors justice delivery process from different stakeholders in the administration of criminal justice in Nigeria, and the implementation is to enhance the quality of legal representation for awaiting trial prisoners, promote judicial intervention, and also reduce the period awaiting trial persons stay in custody before the final determination of their cases. If for nothing else, the document attempts to give voice to the United Nations Handbook on Human Rights on Pre-Trial Detainees 1994, which emphasizes that persons are suspected of having committed offenses and deprived of their liberty should be brought promptly before a judge or other officers authorized by law to exercise judicial functions, who should hear them and take a decision concerning pre-trial detention without delay. I wish therefore commend the team of academics, Prawa officials, and the prison officers that participated in the survey exercise for their meticulous work. It is hoped that other agencies in the chain of justice administration will find the document useful and leverage on the information contained therein to enhance the quality of service delivery in Nigeria. As the keeper and custodian of prisoners, the Nigerian Prison Service has over the years been making frantic efforts to address the general state of imprisonment in Nigeria with a view to promoting the well-being of our inmates, pre-trial detainees inclusive, especially on the containment of prisons overcrowding, subject to financial and legal limitations. Accordingly, the service has continued to take measures to improve the conditions of our cells, as well as procuring more court vehicles to facilitate conveyance and production of inmates to courts as one do, among others. As a matter of fact, the Nigerian Prison Service has witnessed an unprecedented governmental intervention, particularly on the assets areas of budgetary appropriation and fund releases, which have actually impacted immensely on our activities since the emergence of this present administration. May I therefore use this medium to once again register my deep appreciation to His Excellency President Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR, for his commitment to address the age-long infrastructural decay, the hours of logistics, healthcare delivery, and other challenges facing the Nigerian Prison Service. Indeed, the content leave in fund allocation is helping reposition the prison service towards meeting international standards in correctional management. I wish also to thank the Honorable Minister of Interior, Lieutenant General A.B. Dambazau, CFR, PhD, for his honest and patriotic concerns for fellow citizens behind bars. He has indeed been a major pillar of support to the service. To the distinguished and honorable members of the National Assembly, I say thank you for the improved budgetary allocation, legislative advocacy, and support towards the onerous task of providing safe and humane imprisonment in Nigeria. To our development partners, I appreciate your relentless support and hope that the healthy partnership will result in safer global society for everyone. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to thank you all for making our time to grace this occasion. May God bless all, and may God bless Nigeria.
Thank you very much, Controller General of Prisons. I want to believe that the Controller General deserves another resounding round of applause. Without wasting further time, Honorable Mr. Sag, I would like at this juncture to respectfully invite His Excellency Gabriel Toby, Chairman, Prawa Board, to give his opening remarks. Shall we appreciate him, please?
Your Excellency, the Vice President, Federal Republic of Nigeria, represented by the Honorable Minister of Interior, who is also here in his capacity as our Minister in charge of prisons. The Honorable, the Chief Judge, the Controller General, Your Excellencies and members on the high table, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the board, management, and staff of Prisoners Rehabilitation and Welfare Action, Prawa for short, I'm pleased and indeed honored to welcome you to the official presentation of Nigeria Prison Survey Reports to all of you who are stakeholders. For us in Prawa, this is a momentous occasion, not just for Nigerian prisoners service and for Prawa, but to once more celebrate our partnership, which has been a successful one and which has endured for some time. And it's also celebrating all of you who are players in the security and justice sector, and indeed for Nigerian nation. The reason we are gathered here today is to take a critical look at the central issues stemming from the prison surveys conducted and to see how best to implement the working strategy based on the recommendations as we go through looking at the papers that we presented hereafter. Taking a look back, far back 1934, when the modern organizational structure of prison service was established to reform the old colonial system, which lacked direction for penal administration and did not seek reform in any form. Today, the prison service has gone a long way. It's come a long way, both in its reorganization and in its focus. But we acknowledge that we still have a lot to do, especially in respect of overcrowding of prisons, the subsequent infrastructural burdens that need urgent reform. One thing is certain, however, that because of the partnership we have had with Nigerian prisons, Prawa, and other organizations, especially our partners and sponsors, the issue of overcrowding has become an issue in the public domain. Both the mass media and all responsible organizations have come to realize that it's something that we must look at and we must tackle. And I'm sure you will agree with me, we've made substantive progress. There will be more of visitation in prisons. There will be more of talking about it. Awareness has been created. And since the commencement of this program in February 2017, and that the program of trying to do this survey and find out exactly what's happening and what we can do, we have had much more support from other organizations, especially foreign organizations, in trying to find out how do we resolve this problem, how do we solve this problem. Attention has been drawn to the plight of inmates in our congested prisons and prompting government action in quite a number of ways. I understand that Lagos State, for instance, recently announced the adoption of community sentencing as alternative to the traditional incarceration of offenders. I thought you should applaud the Lagos State government for that initiative. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, to bring sustainable reforms in the prisons and justice sector, including the reduction of awaiting trial persons, multi-sectoral partnership and coordination between the various justice sector institutions, civil society organizations, and private sector is critical. I therefore commend the decision of Nigerian Prison Service and the Prawa to publicly present to you today the survey reports to you as stakeholders. I also want to encourage all of you to commit yourself to supporting the effective implementation of the recommendations of these survey reports. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, once again, we'd like to welcome you to the official presentation of Nigerian prisons survey reports. Thank you very much and welcome.
Thank you very much, sir. That was our elder statesman, His Excellency, Sir Gabriel Toby. They say they could not last long in the mouth of those that know the value. We appreciate you, sir. At this juncture, without wasting further time, I would like to invite goodwill messages and May I, with all respect and honor, call on the Honorable Justice, as Chief Judge of the Federal High Court, Abuja, Honorable Justice Ishak Bello, to start this process by giving us his goodwill message. Ladies and gentlemen, Honorable Justice Ishak Bello is one individual that I admire so much. Just yesterday, I was watching him in one of the platforms, literally appealing to his colleagues to come together and work towards the implementation of the administration of criminal justice. Thank you very much, sir.
Your Excellency, the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, ably represented by my very good brother, the Honorable Minister of Interior, General Dambazo, here present, other distinguished members of the High Table, ladies and gentlemen, let me abide by the elaborate list of protocols as earlier outlined by previous speaker. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I'm happy to have the opportunity to attend this event and to give my goodwill remarks. Incidentally, I was recently appointed as chairman, National Stakeholders Committee, to oversee the implementation of the Federal Executive Council directives in fast-tracking the decongestion of the prisons nationwide. It is an enormous task which brought me face to face with the challenges of the prison system and the need for all hands to be on deck if we are to develop a comprehensive and long-lasting solution to the challenges that bedevil the Nigerian prison. Acknowledging that the prison is an important and integral part of the criminal justice system, it plays a central role in upholding the rule of law by ensuring that alleged offenders get due justice. When performing at its best, the prison should project a humane experience, providing opportunities for inmates to obtain skills and help with rehabilitation. Unfortunately, we have seen that our prisons today are not at their best. This is the reason why I'm glad to join my voice with various others that have or will deliver goodwill messages at this event to congratulate the Nigerian Prison Service and Prawa on this landmark achievement, which seeks to improve knowledge on the nature and demographical characteristics of waiting trial prisoners, and also to enhance the quality of data collection and use of prison statistics. Along this line, I am impressed and truly appreciate the passion with which the Interior Minister views and handles the prison problem in Nigeria. Almost immediately after my appointment, he indicated his desire to provide a database from where we will commence our discharge of national assignment. And just today he returned from a place with all the gloomy paint, which we are going to witness by Monday because my team will visit that place, to see what we can do in terms of the congestion, the overcrowded situation in that state and others that we have outlined to visit by next week. I congratulate the Interior Minister for this passion. Whichever the industry, we must appreciate that data is changing the face of our world and for the prisons. The collation, flow, and analysis of data are key elements for policy development, budgeting, and resource allocation. We've just heard the Controller General showing appreciation for the incremental in their budgetary allocation, which underscores the significance of budgetary or funds allocation by way of budget. Furthermore, this innovative enterprise, if properly applied, will ensure access to justice and provision of appropriate services in prisons nationwide. Additionally, it will help in the evaluation and provision of proper services such as may assist in meeting the educational, recreational, health, and legal needs of the inmates. As chair of the National Stakeholders Committee, to which I earlier alluded, I can say that the outcomes of this presentation today will help us as we strive to decongest the prisons. We therefore look forward to working with you in the future, particularly Prawa, that has always been around. While hoping that the outcomes will be put to good use, may I once more congratulate the Controller General of Prisons, Alhaji Jafar Ahmed, a very active personality that works with great enthusiasm and sense of great responsibility for the Nigerian nation and in particular the prison services. Officers and men of the Nigerian Prison Service, and indeed my good friend Dr. Uju Agomo for this venture, while hoping that the prison system will be better for us in Nigeria so that we attain the best international standard in terms of prison service. I thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you very much. The Honorable Minister Sag, may I have your permission to quickly recognize one of the sponsors of this occasion, Her Excellency Harriet Thompson, Deputy British High Commissioner. Madam, you are welcome. Thank you very much. I'd like to also recognize the presence of the Director General, Legal Aid Council, Mrs. Joy Bob Manuel. She's already on the high table. Thank you very much, ma'am. Also present is the representative of the Executive Secretary, National Human Rights Commission, Halisu Adamu. You are welcome, sir. May I, at this point, invite the Director General, Legal Aid Council of Nigeria, Mrs. Joy Bob Manuel, to give her goodwill message.
Good morning, all. May I rely on existing protocol, Honorable Minister, sir, the CJFCT High Court, and the donors, Her Excellency of the British Commonwealth Foreign Office. On behalf of management and staff of Legal Aid Council, I bring greetings and say congratulations to the prison service, Nigerian Prison Service, and Prawa on the launch of the Prison Survey Report. The Legal Aid Council, by its mandate, works with the Nigerian Prison Service because the mandate of the council is to represent the poor, but through its 40 years of existence, it has done more of its work with the prison service, representing awaiting trial persons. The council has very passionate lawyers that have consistently represented these particular people in the prison service, not minding the challenge of not having enough lawyers due to the bureaucratic recruitment of lawyers. However, that challenge is being overcome gradually because the Legal Aid Council recently signed an MOU with the Nigerian Bar Association that they should partner with the Legal Aid to offer pro bono services. Prawa has been a veritable consultant, working assiduously with international donor agencies to help reform the Nigerian prisons. And I can attest to a lot of the work that Prawa has done and linking other stakeholders to the prison service. For instance, in the Legal Aid Council, working with donor agencies like J4A and UNODC, we've been able to have some kind of reform to help us align with the reforms going on in the prison and to help us get our mandates well in place. And this link has helped access to justice with all of us in the justice sector. I want to congratulate her today because it is a testimony of the hard work she has put into the prison reform and other agencies she has worked for. We have benefited a lot and we say thank you. We are part of the project of today. In the 3 states that the Foreign Office of British Commonwealth has donated some funds to, using Prawa as their consultant, in Lagos, Enugu, and Kano, the Legal Aid Council are providing the defense lawyers as well as some paralegal. So we are happy to be here today to be part of this launch, and that we know from what we have been working with, who we've been working with, Dr. Uju Agomo, that this is part of her great work and part of the success that has been recorded in the justice sector. We congratulate the British Foreign Office for helping Nigeria to continue to reform itself and to be accepted in the world as doing the right things for its prisoners. We congratulate the Nigerian Prison Service for how far they have gone, and we say we hope all ministers will emulate the Minister of Interior, who has helped them to get more funds. We, other stakeholders, need to have more funds to continue to do the work we do. Congratulations on today's activity.
Thank you very much, Madam. We appreciate you for assisting us to appreciate our indefatigable Honorable Minister of Interior. We thank you very much once again. Very quickly, may I, with all honor and respect, invite Her Excellency Harriet Thompson, Deputy British High Commissioner, to give her remarks. Let's appreciate it. I think we can do better.
Thank Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, ably represented here today by the Honourable Minister of Interior, Controller General of Prisons, Chair of the Prawa Board, other representatives here at the high table, and distinguished guests present in the room, please permit me to stand on existing protocols and to begin by apologising very sincerely for my late arrival this morning at such an important event. I'd like to thank the Prisoners' Rehabilitation and Welfare Action, Prawa, for convening this event and for the important work that they did in undertaking this census. The census was undertaken as part of a broader body of UK support to Nigeria's prison service, which includes support for improving the conditions and reducing the number of prisoners awaiting trial. The UK has been supporting Nigeria's security and justice sector development for over 10 years. The Security and Justice Reform Programme, of which this project is a part, represents a continuation of that commitment and partnership towards a more stable and prosperous Nigeria. It builds on the UK government's Justice for All programme, known as J4A, which helped to address issues in the Nigerian criminal justice sector that slow down the delivery of justice. As we consider the challenges facing Nigeria and the region, we recognise the critical and positive role that Nigeria's justice institutions and its citizens play in promoting transparency, accountability and peace. Indeed, strong and independent justice institutions are a prerequisite for speedy dispensation of justice, democratic advancement and sustainable peace and development. Set against that backdrop, the fact that about 70% of prisoners are awaiting trial is deeply troubling. Those people are men and women, they have families, they have communities. Prisons are a critical link in the criminal justice chain. They cannot work alone, however. The solution to this crisis, and it is a crisis, requires a concerted and coordinated commitment of the whole of government. This prison census is the first of its kind in Nigeria. It represents a significant source of information on both the conditions of prisoners and those tasked with guarding and protecting them. Our hope is that it will serve as a valuable tool to inform policy and to direct efforts, in particular with the aim of reducing the number of prisoners on remand. The Nigerian government has taken commendable steps in recent years to address many of the systemic bottlenecks within the criminal justice system. Passage of the Administration of Criminal Justice Act presents a unique opportunity to ensure that every Nigerian is given access to due process. So I wish you many happy deliberations today. This sentence is just the start. What really matters is what happens next and what we all do with this tool. So thank you very much for coming. Thanks again to Prawa to convening the event. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. We appreciate you, Your Excellency. Very quickly, let me recognize the presence of directors of public prosecution from Lagos, from Enugu, from Kano, and I understand that there are some judges here present, or magistrates rather. We also have a number of officers from sister security organizations. We have senior officers from the police force, Nigerian Police Force, Nigerian Security and Civil Defense Corps. And we also have some top managers of different media organizations here present, because we know you remain a viable vehicle to drive this important message to the grassroots. Once again, I appreciate you all for coming. May I, at this juncture, invite the representative of DIG, H.M. Dagala, to please come forward and present the goodwill message he has on behalf of the DIG Force Criminal Investigation. Thank you very much.
Good morning. My name is Ben Okolo. Deputy Commissioner of Police in charge of Special Fraud Unit in Fort CID. I'm a representative of the Deputy Inspector General of Police in charge of Fort CID. His Excellency, the Vice President, eminently represented by the Honorable Minister of Defense, permit me to stand. Excuse me, please. Represented by the Honorable Minister of Interior, permit me to stand on existing protocol. This is a landmark achievement on the part of the prison service. We recognize the fact that the Criminal Administration of Criminal Justice Act has laid a platform for us to improve on our administration of criminal justice. Well, we remember that in administration of criminal justice, actions and processes start from arrests, investigations, prosecution, and custody of welfare of prisoners. It's in this line that what the prison service has done today is a landmark achievement. It is a long chain and a very long and important process. If the police force is not doing well, if the judicial system is not doing well, and the prison service is not doing well, we're going to have a very lot problem. So what Prawa and the prison service have done is a very important achievement, and we recognize this. It's on this note that we say thank you very much to the prison service, and we congratulate the Honorable Minister of Interior and the government of Nigeria. We equally appreciate and thank other donor countries, especially the British High Commission. Thank you very much. God bless you all.
Thank you very much for identifying with this worthy cause. May I very quickly recognize the presence in our midst of the representative of DIG Emmanuel Iyan, in charge of training and development, Force Headquarters, ACP, Ibrahim Zakaria. Thank you very much for coming. I also like to recognize Mr. Balak Mohammed, Commissioner, Planning, Research, and Review, ICPC. Thank you very much, sir, for coming. In that wise, I equally want to recognize Mr. Arinze Mbanefo, Chief Legal Officer, NAPTIP, National Headquarters, Abuja. He is here representing the Director General. Thank you very much for coming. At this point, I'd like to invite the Executive Secretary, National Human Rights Commission, His Excellency, just to recognize, please. Sorry, sir, we're just trying to put us together with the organizers to identify the next person to give the goodwill message. We have another very important personality in our in our midst today, His Excellency Mr. Eric Merez, the Ambassador of Switzerland to Nigeria, Niger, Chad, and ECOWAS. Thank you very much, Your Excellency. At this juncture, may I very humbly invite you to give your goodwill message. A round of applause, please.
Thank you. His Excellency, the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, ably represented today by His Excellency Lieutenant General Dambazao, the Minister of Interior, Controller General of Prison, Chairman, Executive Director of Prawa, honorable guests of the high table, all protocol observers, ladies and gentlemen. This is really a great pleasure and an honor for me to be invited by Prawa today to the opening ceremony of this event of the official public presentation of the Nigeria's prison service reports. The issue of improvement of Nigerian criminal justice system is of great importance towards the promotion, peace, security, and development in Nigeria. I would like to congratulate the Nigerian Prison Service and Prawa for this very important survey report. I also thank the British government for supporting this initiative. This initiative aligns with some of the past and ongoing interventions of the government of Switzerland, which includes providing support for the training on human rights to prison officers and police officers. On the police side, the Swiss Embassy, partnering with the Nigerian Police Force, GIZ, UNODC, and with the technical support of Prawa, have implemented several interventions towards mainstreaming human rights in the training of operation of the Nigerian Police Force, including the development of NPF human rights training manuals, trainer guides, and other resource material, sensibilization and training of divisional police officers, divisional crime officers, NPF human rights desk officers, and establishment of state-based human rights training and oversight resource team. On the prison side, the Embassy of Switzerland is also supporting similar projects of mainstreaming human rights for the personnel of the Nigerian Prison Service. The project started in 2014 and is implemented with the NGO UNICEF for the NPS. This project helped the Nigerian Prison Service to develop and produce human rights training manuals to bridge a vital human resources gap in this area. Based on this manual, trainings are provided all over the country to NPS officers. Other agencies of the Nigerian government, which have also important role to play and are collaborating with us, just to mention the courts, the Ministry of Justice, defense lawyers, and court witnesses. While we congratulate the government of Nigeria, especially the Ministry of Interior and the Nigerian Prison Service, as well as Prawa, we pledge to continue to partner with the government and the people of Nigeria on our ongoing projects and other futures areas as may be identified through the Nigerian-Switzerland excellent relationship. We encourage all key stakeholders to participate and ensure the effective implementation of all recommendations contained in the Nigerian Prison Survey report. And I wish you a good event today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, particularly for the promise to continue to give supporting hand to better the cause of prison administration in Nigeria. May I also call on the Executive Secretary, National Human Rights Commission. His representative is here to briefly give us his goodwill message.
Good morning, everybody. The Vice President, Professor Emi Osibanjo, son, ably represented by the Honorable Minister of Interior, the FCTCJ, the Controller General, other dignitaries at the high table, ladies and gentlemen. The Executive Secretary would have wanted to be here, but for other exigency of work, she has to leave the office for the National Assembly this morning. So she asked me to come in and present her goodwill message. I present it as follows. It is a great honor and privilege to be invited to the official public presentation of the Nigerian Prison Survey reports. Particularly, I wish to commend the initiative of the Nigerian Prison Service and the Prisoners Rehabilitation and Welfare Action for the impressive project. This is indeed a national endeavor that every patriotic citizen must support to ensure that the prison reform project is achieved. As a commission, it is gratifying to note that the document professes the partners' belief in respect for international law and human rights in the reform of our prison system. Hence, the resolve to contribute towards a process that will abide by the rule of law in dealing with awaiting trial prisoners. This connects directly with the mandate and the vision of the National Human Rights Commission, which is the promotion, protection, and enforcement of the rights of all Nigerians, including prisoners, inmates. As you may be aware, the National Human Rights Commission periodically carries out prison visitations or audit in line with Section 61D of the National Human Rights Commission, Act 1995 as amended, which empowers the Commission to visit all places of detention in order to ascertain the condition therein and take further appropriate steps the Commission deems necessary. This mandate has over the years informed and facilitated several activities in all and around the prisons in collaboration with the prison service and other stakeholders, including Prawa. The outcome of such collaborations have resulted in so many reforms, not just prison service, but the criminal administrative justice system in Nigeria. Furthermore, the amendment of the National Human Rights Commission Act of 2010 broadened the mandate of the Commission to examine existing legislations, administrative provisions, and proposed bills or bylaws for the purpose of ascertaining whether such enactments or proposed bills or bylaws are consistent with human rights norms. In line with this mandate, the Commission welcomes this development as a pathway towards ensuring compliance of relevant national instruments with human rights standards. In conclusion, while commending Prawa for this laudable initiative, I wish to pledge the commitment of National Human Rights Commission to work with you and other stakeholders to leverage on the findings of the survey in order to build on the progress so far recorded in improving the conditions of awaiting trial prisoners. I thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you for that beautiful message. At this juncture, permit me, Your Excellency, to introduce and pass over the microphone to my co-compare, Barrister Ogechi Ogu, to continue from here. Ogechi, please.
Your Excellency, the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, ably represented by the Minister of Interior. Kindly permit me, sir, to stand on already established protocol. And may I also use this opportunity to once more welcome all of you to this event on behalf of the board, management, and staff of Prawa. Today is a very happy day to us. I must say this before I continue. We are glad to have all of you here today. We are now at the climax of this event. Okay, is it anti-climax? We have introduction of the research team leads and the technical presentation of the highlights of the prison survey reports. And the person that will be anchoring this is no other person than Dr. Uju Agomo, Executive Director, Prawa.
Your Excellency, the Vice President of Federal Republic of Nigeria, ably represented by the Honorable Minister of Interior. This session will be very brief because a lot will be done through the group session, and I know that we are really itching to have Your Excellency publicly present this publication so that we will have the due authorization to start digging deep into the content. Your Excellency, please permit me to first recognize the lead researchers who are here present. Please, is anybody helping me to scroll this down? So I will first start by recognizing my good friend and my good boss and mentor and everything, Professor Ayo Dele Victoria Ashenua, the Dean, Faculty of Law, University of Lagos. I also have the honor and privilege to recognize another member of the lead research team, and that is Dr. Ibrahim Bello, who is the head, Department of Sociology, Bayero University, Kano. I also would like to recognize Mr. Joseph Odionye, who is from Abia State University Department of Economics. He's a lecturer. Another member of the lead team is a demographer, and that's Associate Professor Ezenwokacha from the University of Ibadan. Please, can we clap for him? And then my humble self. The very few things I wanted to just mention is just to say that this particular research is part of the series of components that is integrated within the prison reform program, which is funded by the Foreign and Commonwealth Office as part of the Security Justice Reform Program that is being implemented from February 2017 to March 2019. There are other components relating to the provision of paralegal services and pro bono services, which we are also doing in partnership with the Legal Aid Council, and activities relating to the improving the frequency and quality of media reporting, which we are working with a network of journalists. Very briefly, let me leave the other aspects of the project and go squarely to the activities that relate to this particular survey. But be that as it may, our main aim is to see how this project can help us reduce the number of persons who are in pretrial detention, and as well as how it can help us encourage greater support, greater awareness on issues relating to prisons and justice sector reform. Next slide. Your Excellency, today we have the honor to present basically 3 reports. And these 3 reports are as follows. The first report that we will be presented this day by the Honorable Minister of Interior, who is representing the Vice President, is actually a research on pretrial detention in Nigeria. The second is a survey on prisoners' psychological and socio-economic characteristics. And the third is a perception survey of prison officers in Nigeria. The process, so that we can better appreciate what really went through this, include first the designing of the survey instrument. Then we went through a rigorous process of pre-testing of that instrument, the training of the data collectors. Then we moved into the issue, of course, of collation and analysis of the data. We also had opportunity of doing validation of the draft report and the initial results before the finalization. And throughout the various steps around this survey, there is a very integrated approach which involved practitioners from the field, prison officers, as well as academians, members of the academia, those who know the best processes in terms of research methodology, to ensure that what we are getting in terms of information as such that we should be able to rely on as a people. Next slide. Why do we want to do this survey? You know, there's a saying that goes thus, that if you do not know what the problem is, it is very difficult to know how to deal with the problem. So we felt that this survey will enable us to understand the root causes of the perennial problems in terms of high number of pretrial detainees in this country, as well as other associated issues, and therefore be able to articulate in very creative way what needs to be done to address it, including hearing and seeing also from the perspective of those who should know best, who are those who are in the various prisons and administering services to these inmates in terms of prison officers. Next slide. Just to mention very quickly that there are several instruments that were used, but there are specific instruments that basically was used to collect information from staff, from inmates, and the rest of them. When you look at the report, you'll see all that. The target population, we went into certain prisons which were selected by the leadership of the prisons in terms of prisons that have high proportion of awaiting trials. And we also made sure that relatively there is representation in terms of geopolitical level. Very quickly, next slide. I will just mention some few results because I believe that as soon as Your Excellency have given us the authorization to start looking at the report, during the group session, we will have more time to look at it. But just go straight. I just want to highlight some of the findings. But be it as it may, there were some key questions we wanted to know. We wanted to know who are the people who are in prisons? Why are they there? And what are the impacts of them being in the prisons? First, I must say, and this is already a known fact, as at the time we did the validation of this survey, which was in September 2017, we found out that we had 79% of the total number of persons in prisons that were surveyed who were awaiting trial, with only 20% of that was convicted. The other was others. And that's the statistics for the rest. It's also important to mention that in terms of gender, the statistics indicated that it was only 2% that were females, and that's consistent with a lot of research that is across the globe. But what this means is that we have to also be careful not to ignore the special peculiar issues relating to women when in places of custody. One of the prisons that we, in the prisons that we surveyed, we found that that was also the case. Now, just very quickly, some of the things that were found, and we are going to just highlight only the headlines now. One, a lot of the inmates that we found were young people. Many of them, were people who naturally will be classified as people who were in their active years. The second, we found that a lot of the prisoners were people with low level of education, low level of resources. We also found that some of the prisoners indicated that they were breadwinners of their families. We also found that there was some considerable proportion of them that were married with children. We found out another significant thing, that a high proportion of them were charged for property and property-related offenses. For property and property-related, which is an economic and economic-related offenses. And I think this is important because if we're looking at in terms of intervention or looking at in terms of issues related to rehabilitation, we need to be able to find out what are the risk factors that predispose some of these people into the kind of situation they find themselves. Okay, next slide. And these are just some of the statistics in terms of the offenses. Then let's look at next slide. Now, no, that slide is important. Let me mention it. A high number of the inmates, we found that some of the cases, they were stored cases. And in that definition, these are cases that were not proceeding at all. We are not only talking about how long they have been in detention, awaiting completion of their cases, but they have been considerable length of time in terms of them going to court. And this was what we found. We found, we found here, no, I need to talk about this other one before, yes. We found out that there were considerable, some of the reasons that they were given in terms of why these cases were stored. Highest number of those reasons related to they were awaiting DPP's advice. And that's why today I'm very happy that we have in a midst representative from many ministries, state ministries of justice, including directors of public prosecutions who are here. We also had the cases where cases are joined sine die, which was just not that much of the issue. But then there were also instances of cases that have not yet been assigned. So that was some of the things that we observed in terms of the survey report. Interesting also, and I think this is, for instance, interesting for the police, that a high number of persons were reported that they were arrested by the police. Why this is important is that we know that about 18, 19 institutions in this country that can arrest in one way or the other. But a considerable number, which was well over 70%, it reported that they came because the police arrested them. And you can see the statistics, ranging from 75.9%, in Enugu to about 78.2% in Ikoyi. Now, amongst those who said they were arrested by the police, a very, very high number said they came because of the SARS. SARS was the particular unit of the police that arrested them, which is the Special Armed Robbery Squad. And that statistic is 86.4% for Enugu, 78.8% for Kanu, and 80% for Ikoyi. The second agency that scored next after the police was the NDL, National Drug Law Enforcement Agency. So now, in terms of other findings that we got was that we also found out that some of the awaiting trial persons did not know the status of their cases. They said, I don't know whether it's at the stage of, I don't know, but I've not gone to court, or I went the other day, but I can't remember what they decided in the court and all that. And there were many also who were granted bail. There were fewer who were granted bail, and of those who were granted bail, many have not perfected the bail, have not been able to meet the conditions of bail. We also found that some number of the awaiting trial persons said, about 50% of that said they didn't have effective legal representation. And of those who have effective legal representation, about half of that population said they are not happy with the quality of the legal representation they were getting. Next slide. Okay, this is just the percentage in terms of bail. You can find out here that you had about 68% not granted bail and only 32% had bail granted. And then of those number, not many of them were not perfected. Now, just next, very slight, next, can we go fast? This is also in terms of the reasons why the inmates did not have legal representation. Some say they didn't have money to engage the lawyers. Some say that the lawyers, some of them collected money and absconded. Some say that they were unable to pay the complete fee to the lawyers. Some say they don't know the reason, and there were also other reasons. And that's why part of the key aspects of the success of this project is the effective partnership with the Legal Aid Council, and the need to provide better coordination and support to the council to effect the provisions of the Legal Aid Act of 2011. Okay, that's the statistics about their satisfaction with the lawyers and no satisfaction. Let's quickly move on because I know that we will have more time to look at this. This is a very interesting slide. They were asked, what is your rating in terms of the assessment of the different justice sector institutions? Your Excellency, relatively higher number of the respondents said that they were relatively more happier with the police, with the prison service. The prison service attracted the highest favorable response, and the least, or would I say the worst, in terms of this, was in terms of their response in relation to the police. So you had the prisons, followed by the courts, followed by other prosecuting agencies, and then the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution, and then other law enforcement agencies. And then that's in the next was the police. So which is also something telling us an area we can also do something more. I won't say much about it, but this is just to say that a high number also indicated the length of time in terms of third cases. Let's go on. This also talked about the point I had made earlier in terms of the higher number not being able to have proper education or proper jobs. And when you do that, that means their chances of surviving economically becomes something that could be challenged. Next slide. Now, the second report, I will just say some very few things about it, and we just conclude. The first thing we found is that there is a very strong nexus, very strong connection between poverty and imprisonment. Most of the persons in prison are poor, with low education and employment status, and they earn little prior to their incarceration. And that's very important. Somebody says that if you look too closely, it looks like, anyway, the point is already clear. But the point is that we need to be sure that this is not the kind of narrative we should be getting. So we need to make sure that it's fair and balanced, and people who are vulnerable and disadvantaged get adequate support. We also found here, Your Excellency, that the socioeconomic impact of the excessive use of prison custody actually will find to be affecting not just only the prisoners, but also their families. One of the things that you will see in the report is the number of family visits. It is unbelievable. By the time we looked at two very, very basic factors, when we looked at the number of times the prison service transport people to court every day, and checked it across every week, every month, and every year, and then looked at the number of times families visit, it is only can be described that it's a miracle that the prisons is still operating on time. In terms of the volume of transactional effect, Now, if you look at the issues about the family, the travels, the visits, you will need to understand what that means in terms of how many persons are coming, the transport for the family members, the risk factors and things like that. So it's also good for us to understand that when somebody is in prison, it's not just only about the person, it's about their families. And when they say they are breadwinners, we also understand there are very serious consequences in terms of how others fare in the society and in terms of how we generate economy and have development in the economy. When we see, so that we should not see prisons in isolation, but we should see the nexus and relationship between the prisons and development. The other point, please, is just to mention that some of the inmates mentioned that they had no history of prior convictions, that they have never had prior convictions. But of course, there were some that have had that. So what this means is that we need to be very careful in terms of risk and needs assessment, even at the point when is coming in. So this also implies that we should be able to use more of non-custodial sentences, especially for persons who have never been in that situation, understanding that one day or 2 days or 2 seconds in a prison can increase your chances of getting worse. So you could have gone in as perhaps somebody who had just stolen 5 naira, for example, and you come out learning how to do what? Carry more arms, kill, maim, and do worse. So my point is that a proper assessment of who comes into the places of detention and what happens while they're there is important in terms of further improving of the security of the society. Now, you may have somebody designated in terms of a particular offense, but those offenses you have them designated is as the police have charged. But that person may not have been charged, maybe doesn't mean he has been charged wrongly. But when he goes into the cell, he's staying in the cell with some who may be also hardened. So I think that point is important to flag so that people will understand the importance of this. Then I also wanted to mention the fact that most of the prisoners in the prisons that were surveyed were actually people who were living or resident in the states where these prisons are located. And this is a need to call many states to also come to the aid of prisons. So you can't say it's only the problem of this federal, because these people are about your members of your community. I will not go through all these slides, but I'll just flag some because I really would like us to have the proper authorization by the Vice President so that we can start looking at today's particular report well. There were instances of people who were using drugs. You can see the statistics. 70% say they had always used hard drugs. And that's also something we need to look at in terms of controlling further criminalization and antisocial behavior. Next slide. This is in terms of those who are still currently using even while in prison. Then the next slide. Next slide, please. Let's go to the slide about the prison officers. I am very excited about this slide about prison officers, and it's just some few things I want to say as I comment. So one of the things that we notice here is that many of the prison officers were males, and they were in their middle career level and with high education level. And I think this is in something that I believe the Nigerian Prison Service should celebrate, sir. The research, Your Excellency, found that a high number of persons who were prison officers had high educational level. Master's degree, and which, from the people who had done the survey. And I think this is important because in some agencies, you may find that you have a lot of people who are not that, with that kind of career. So we think it's very important to look at. So it is about, a lot of them were males, a lot of them were in the middle career level, a lot of them had a high educational level. So I think we should maximize this and be able to do more in terms of what we need to do with these staff. Then we also find out that many of the prison officers have working experiences both from that particular prison and others, and where they have served. So this also in terms of issues of capacity. Then there is another element that I think is important and should also be celebrated. Most prison officers that we talked to reported that they actually are very happy about their jobs. And when they were asked, why are you happy? They said because it's about helping others. It's about cooperation with other staff. And it also has some elements of training and development. And I think that was important. There were some other issues which were issues of concern, but which can also be looked at. And part of the issues about how can you build more of their capacities, more about welfare, more about issue about the time that they spend in terms of work, and how can you make that so that they're not too much stressed. Next slide, and I think I'll probably not talk much about it. Okay, many talked about the need for training, that they want to continue doing that. Let's go on. Next slide. Next slide. Next slide. There are some issues about recommendations. Because we are going to have a working session that will look more into this, I will not go into that. But be that as it may, it's important to mention there are recommendations that have legal and policy implications that needs to be able to look at. The need to effectively, and we are stressing that point, effectively implement the provisions of the Administration of Criminal Justice Act 2015 and the Administration of Criminal Justice Law in the various states that have applied, including those who were developed even before 2015. The need to look at the activation of all the provisions of the Legal Aid Act of 2011, as well as the National Legal Aid Strategy of 2017 to 2022. Because you find out that sometimes you have the law, but that's not the problem. The problem is lack of effective implementation of that law. And then we'll talk about some of these clear things, issues about funding of the Legal Aid Fund, issues around certification of paralegals, issues about database and mainstreaming of that. So this is just, can you have the next slide? So beyond that, the next one, please. There are also recommendations in terms of operational and service delivery and the rest. So this is just only but the tip of the iceberg. The recommendations have not ended. You will have the report as soon as His Excellency, the Vice President, allows us to do so by the time he publicly presents this to us. And also we have a session later in the day where in group sessions we will be able to see how each and every one of us will be able to key in. As I end, Your Excellency, this is just to say that the recommendations and the reforms as we see it is something that requires multi-sectoral partnership, cooperation. No one institution can do it alone. No one individual can do it alone. And I'm praying and hoping that all the people who are here can commit to say we will support the reforms happening in Nigeria and indeed support Nigerian Prison Service to make a difference. Thank you and God bless you, Your Excellency.
That was Dr. Ujua Gomo at her best. Were you surprised? For me, I was not. This is a lady that has been working with the prison for close to 3 decades now, a specialist in security and justice sector reform. God bless you, Dr. Ujua Gomo. Thank you.
Thank you very much. They say if the woodpecker will continue to peck the wood relentlessly, it will eventually get something out of the wood. Thank you very much, Dr. Ujua Gomo and Prawa. At this juncture, please permit me to make a slight adjustment. We are at this moment going to invite His Excellency Professor Yemi Osibanjo, SANGCO, and here ably represented by the Honorable Minister of Interior, Lieutenant General Abdurrahman Bello Dambazao, CFR PhD. Sir, here you are wearing 2 caps. One in your capacity as the Honorable Minister of Interior, and the greater cap as a representative of His Excellency, the Vice President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. We have always enjoyed your sense of commitment, clarity of purpose. You have always been a pillar of support to the Nigerian Prison Service. We can never thank you enough. Perhaps all we have to say is to beg God that all our collective effort will not be in vain. At this juncture, ladies and gentlemen, I want you all to join me in welcoming the representative of His Excellency Professor Yemi Osibanjo, Vice President, Federal Republic of Nigeria, Lieutenant General Abdurrahman Bello Dambazao, CFR PhD, Honorable Minister of Interior, to present his remarks, special remarks at that, and thereafter proceed with the presentation of the prison survey report. Shall we welcome him, please?
Controller General, Nigerian Prison Service, Ahmed Jafaru, the Chief Judge, FCT High Court, and Chair, Administration of Criminal Justice Act Monitoring Committee, Justice Ishak Bello, His Excellency Alabo Gabriel Tobi, former Deputy Governor, Rivers State, and Chairman Prawa Board, His Excellency Mr. Eric Mayoras, Ambassador of Switzerland to Nigeria, with accreditation to Niger, Chad, and ECOWAS, Her Excellency Harriet Thompson, Deputy British High Commissioner, Director General Legal Aid Council of Nigeria, Mrs. Joy Bob Manuel, our development partners here present, the Executive Director Prawa, Dr. Uju Agoma, representatives of various security agencies here and other institutions here present, our friends of the media, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. I've been requested to make presentation of these publications. But first, let me just observe or make comments on some of the brief introduction made by the Executive Director of Prawa on the issues raised in the survey itself. The issue of gender, the issue of age, education, marital status, and the type of offenses that dominate this country, and by extension reflected in our various prisons, that is property and property-related offenses. The arrests made, which are dominated by SARS, that is the police, and the NDLEA, the lack of effective legal representation, and the correlation between poverty and imprisonment or the prison population, and the fact that she also observed, or the researchers also observed, that most prison officers, in terms of perception, are highly educated and they are happy with their jobs. These indices are very, very important. Now, I want to say that first to congratulate Prawa, because they have done, or they have been contributing in filling very important gaps that have been open for a very long time. That is in terms of the depth of statistics. And this is why, because we do not have valid and reliable statistics, it's difficult to carry out empirical research that could answer some of the questions we have within the criminal justice system. And this is a very important reason why we have not been able to advance and make progress within the system. I visited the Port Harcourt prison yesterday. While I was waiting for my time for flight, I thought I should close the gap by having something to do, so I chose to go to the prison. what I saw is a reflection of quite a lot of things here contained in the survey. The Port Harcourt prison was built in 1918. So this year it makes it 100 years old. I think only Kano prison that is older. Kano prison is 110 years old, or 11 years old, thereabout. 1810. They're about 1810. But I also discovered that, and I was just telling the Controller General, that for a very, very long time, our prisons have been neglected. Because that prison, when it was built in 1918, it was meant to contain about 800 prisoners, inmates. But today, it is containing almost 5,000. And I found that very, very disturbing, very disturbing. There was no room for prisoners. And anybody who goes into that place as a human being, he's coming out as an animal. So this kind of activities by Prawa makes a lot of difference in our system, particularly with the new Administration of Criminal Justice Act 2015, which contains all these issues and how to deal with them. But the important thing is implementing that act or following it in detail to the latter, particularly in terms of domestication of the act in the various states. Like has been observed by the executive director, most of the inmates in the various prisons in the states come from within the state. So there is absolutely every reason for state governments to support and partner the federal government in administering prison service. If I have to give more of the story of what I saw in Port Harcourt prison, the media will take me, show me everywhere crying. So I don't want to go that extent. But to say the least is very disturbing. And we must do something about our prisons. And fortunately for us, His Excellency, the President, Muhammadu Buhari, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, Federal Republic of Nigeria, has shown very keen interest in the reforms of the prisons. And of course, we do not have enough resources to do that, but quite a lot has started towards that direction. Part of the problem has been even transporting inmates from prisons to the courts and back. And a lot has been covered in that area, although it's just tip of on the iceberg, because we require more, but a lot has been done in terms of the procurement of vehicles. But because this has been left for a very, very long time, we need more of those vehicles. Secondly, because of the concern for overcrowding in prisons, Also, the president has been very, very supportive in our efforts towards rehabilitating the facilities in prisons, which we've started. Construction, including the construction of 3,000 capacity prisons in each of the geopolitical zones. But that is not a major issue now we are facing. The major issue we are facing, as has been rightly pointed out, is the population of those awaiting trial, pre-trial detention. Of the about 5,000 prisoners or inmates I saw in Port Harcourt prison yesterday, 3,700 and something of them are those awaiting trial. And I spoke with a few of them as I was moving, and I found that many of them had been in prison 5 years upwards without going to court. And I tried to find out some of the reasons. And I think in order to deal with this situation, there is need for the Department of Public Prosecution to look at how it processes or what kind of procedure should be adopted in prosecuting cases in this country, criminal cases in particular. Second, investigation by police or arrests procedures must be looked into in order to deal with this situation. Because if the investigation is poor, then the prosecution will be extremely difficult, if not impossible. Third are the courts. I'm happy that the chairman and the FCT judge is here. The courts have a lot to do in terms of criminal trials. Cases are unnecessarily adjourned. And of course, I know there's overlapping problems. There are overlapping problems. But the prison system is just a warehouse. Prisons are warehouses for inmates brought to them. And I've mentioned the issues of the environment within the prison. Those are the areas prison staff should focus on. But they cannot do anything in terms of prison population, because the prison is just a warehouse. And so we need to come collectively together, the Department of Public Prosecution, the police, and the courts to deal with this issue. Because sometimes when you visit these prisons, you started thinking as if you are reading something about what was said in the 18th century by fathers of modern criminology in Europe and the Americas. So we need to do a lot about our prison system, because it's just like computer. Garbage in, garbage out. If we want to ensure that we carry out our responsibilities, then we must be able to do a lot. For the prison officers, is said that in terms of perception index by the survey, the inmates see you on top. And I understand that, which is my own observation too, that most of prison officers are highly educated. But it doesn't stop there. It is not about your university degree. It's about your professional training as prison officers that matter. And that is why we've said on the board that officers of the prisons, immigration, civil defense, and so on, must train in order to earn promotion. Professional training. It doesn't matter if you're a PhD. What matters is what is your professional calling? How good are you as a prison officer? And you cannot be good if you don't train. I got PhD in 1989 as a captain in the army. But that had nothing to do with my career progression in the army. I had to sit for my promotion exams. I had to go for my courses and pass my courses very well. I have to pass my promotion exams before I got promoted from one rank to another. But that degree you have gives you an opportunity to expand your horizon, to think deeply, and come out with quality decisions. That's what the advantage you have. But don't rely on it and you have a degree and you don't train as a prison officer, because being a prison officer requires, you're dealing with human beings. So it requires particular kind of training, which you must, so I'm saying this so that you can add to the advantage you have as being on the top. With these comments, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, may I have the privilege of presenting these survey reports, volume 1. Yeah, okay. The volume 1 of the prison survey report is on a research on pretrial detention in Nigeria. And I believe that, I think there is no person here that is eager to have copies of this than myself, because I just started reviewing my textbook on criminology and criminal justice. Yeah. So this is the first. The executive summary is here. This is the executive summary on my right hand, and this is the main report on my left hand. Then the volume 2, it's socioeconomic characteristics of prisoners and impact of imprisonment in Nigeria. This is very, very, very important. This is the summary of it, and this is the main report on my right. The third volume of the prison survey report is the perception survey of prison officers in Nigeria. This is the main report on my right, and this is the summary on my left. On this note, I want to express my gratitude for the invitation and also congratulate Prawa, especially its executive director, and all those who made contributions to make this exercise successful. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister Sak. We can never thank you enough. Okay, thank you very much. The Honorable Minister is about stepping out of the hall. Honorable Minister Sak, we are requesting a photo session with the book. Members of the high table, please. Members of the high table, please. We request that you kindly join the Honorable Minister for the photo session to formally present the book. Please, members of the high table, to kindly join the Honorable Minister for the photo session.
Please, as that goes on, we kindly ask you to follow us on our, is it social? Hello? Yes, please kindly follow us on our social media platform. Prawa. Hashtag Prawa.what? This boy didn't write it. Okay, it's hash Prawa _ yes. Okay, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram on Prawa _NGO. Then you use the hashtag Prawa and Prawa Reform NG. Yes. So to see our conversations, thank you.